All right, everyone. I am System Update, your host. We are on the topic of UFOs and USOs, and this is my host.
Black and White GX, and I'm just happy to be here. And there was free food.
He's only ever here for the food. So, last week we talked about UFOs. There is a little bit of an update on UFOs before we dive into our USOs. We did, in fact, get a message from my Discord community from someone named Goth Goddess Nikki. They brought up a video to my attention of a giant orb over the coast of Yemen being shot by missiles by a MD-9 Reaper drone in October of 2024. The missiles apparently strike the orb. There is absolutely no type of damage done to the orb, and then it continues moving on its merry way. This obviously has brought up a huge outrage by not only community, just everyday people and civilians, but military as well. I think last week I covered a UAP that was coming out to kind of like a protection plan that was coming out for whistleblowers both in and I believe out the military, so that there would be no, what would you say, what's the word that they use, retaliation for such reports being done. So that's not only pretty cool, a little scary. Missile drone, missile drone. Oh my god, a missile really not going off once it hits its target is a little freaky. We really don't know what this glowing orb was. There's a lot of videos circulating. A lot of people thought it might be AI. It is not AI. It has been covered on several news sources, and it's both quite amazing and absolutely terrifying. Let me see if our co-host over here has anything to say on the Yemen incident.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. That's not really scary to me. Like based off like out of everything, that part kind of doesn't scare me because what did you expect to happen when you shoot a random floating orb in the sky? Especially if it didn't go off, it just instead of being scary to me, it's kind of interests me because, like, it goes to show how advanced that technology would actually be to be able to, like my theory so far is like maybe they have a device that disarm like explosives before it makes contact. I don't know, but that's like my best guess for that.
I will say there wasn't any reports of any explosions when it hit. I will also say I personally have not yet seen this video. I was looking into the articles, just making sure this was an actual thing that had happened. I am hopefully going to be not only seeing the video, but also posting the video in our Discord. It's going to be in our podcast section. But to start off with our USOs are unidentified submersible objects. So just the kind of the counter opposite of a UFO. Instead of it being in the sky, it's in the water. You know what I mean? But I did want to go into some early accounts of USOs, just like we did with our UFOs. So one of our earliest accounts is about 5,000 years old, from Aboriginal lore, which is Australia's indigenous community. There's something called the ancient Wangina legends. I am probably butchering that. But from the Kimberley region speaks of water-dwelling beings with attributes echoing modern USO descriptions. Creatures that came from the sky lived in the water. Now, our second one is actually from someone we know from history, Christopher Columbus. On October 11th, 1492, just before sighting land, Columbus noted a light, glimmering rise and fall back into the ocean, like a little wax candle. which quite interesting. These aren't very long. I can only find so much and so many quotes. Obviously, I try to go as far back as I can. Our next one is John Winthrop in 1644 in Boston. He recorded lights arise out of the water in a form like a man before vanishing. Again, this is similar to the account in October 11th in 1492. So I want to say about 200, maybe give or take, years prior. And then we hit the 19th century. This is maritime reports. In 1845, a crew aboard the Bridgerton Victoria saw three luminous bodies emerge from the sea. And that takes us into 1870, the Lady of the Lake. A crew witnessed a lenticular cloud with a tail moving against the wind, reminiscent of a flying saucer. And then that takes us over to Japan in 1803. Utsuro Bun, a legend about a mysterious hollow boat that washed ashore with a silent, unreadable woman aboard, often interpreted by ufologists as a possible early USO encounter. Now, before we hit about mid 20th century, I do want to hear a little bit of what my co-host might have to say about some of the things I've already listed off.
Okay, so as usual, this is kind of part where the mystery kind of like grows for me. But I will say this to kind of like piggyback off, like, the information that you gave. But I have witnessed also my own like sighting. I was scrolling through TikTok as well, and I saw there was not one but like two different like UFO sightings at once in the same spot. And they actually got like a good glimpse of like, the spaceship on it. Now, I don't know if the listeners or viewers here alive now are familiar with Star Wars, but the best way I can describe it, it looks like a Star Destroyer type ship. And again, I can't really give theories or anything about that or anything that, like, the host over here, System, has been saying, because it's kind of like my brain is trying to like wrap around, like, oh my goodness. So this stuff is actually like really happening, like dead ass happening, and there's proof behind it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna let the host continue because I have another revelation to throw at y'all soon.
All right. Now, I honestly am really excited to hear about their revelation. I think you have so much more insight than we've been able to really dig into because you have a lot of theories, especially when it comes to like, I believe bugs and such.
Oh yeah, that we're gonna touch on. I'll say later on, either this week, like today, or next week, because there's something else that came up that I've actually watched a documentary on recently that really caught my attention, which kind of pulls the whole UFO thing and the previous streams all together and like kind of like tie it in a whole knot.
Oh, I love that. I do love that. You're gonna have to send me the link so I can put it in the description. I try to put as much as our links and information in the description of the bio of these podcasts and everything. But right now we're gonna hit mid 20th century where we kind of get more well documented military and civilian encounters. Um, so in 1942 there was the Battle of Los Angeles. During World War II, strange lights reportedly moved over the ocean and appeared to emerge from the water, leading to speculation of USO involvement in the Battle of 1942 during World War II, which is kind of weird. I used to be a very big World War II buff, and there is a lot. So when I was a teen, obviously I was super into World War II. There's a lot of UFO and USO talk when you dive deep into World War II background. If I remember correctly, even the rat bastard himself that started all of it was a huge UFO person. He was very much into, you know, Interstellar. But that brings us into U.S. Great Falls sightings of 1950s. Witnesses and military radars in Montana recorded lights that dipped into the water, suggesting underwater motions. They don't really go into much of it, at least not publicly. But in Lake Baikal incident in 1982, Russian divers claimed to encountered humanoid beings in shiny suits, one of more unusual anecdotal reports involving military personnel. Now, in Shag Harbor, there's an incident that happens in October 4th in 1967 in Nova Scotia, Canada. Witnesses saw a lit object crash into the harbor. Divers and naval units found only yellow foam and no wreckage. The case remains officially unsolved, with government agent. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened when I was reading this one. With government agencies involved. Somewhere in the Cold War, submarines shadowing reports of 1960s through the 70s, like the U.S. Franklin D. Roosevelt, and specifically 1966. The crew reported sonar tracked objects executing invasive underwater maneuvers. And then this turns us over to the U.S. Teru in 1967. Submarine sonar detected a fast-moving object outpacing the vessel. And then again, just a few years later in 69, the U.S. Trepping in 1969, a nuclear sub encountered a matching high-speed underwater contact. That's all it says. And that's all it really gave me when I started to look into these USS submarines. The USS Pinnacle of 1971 tracked a larger than any known submarine on a sonar. They really didn't say much else about the object other than it was bigger than any submarine at the time that we've known of. Then there comes in the USS Omaha in 1989. The sonar and visual tracking of an object that hovered underwater before water before resubmerging. Very weird. I also do want to point out, I believe only 10% of our waters have been discovered or searched, so that we know of. But then this takes us to early 90s. In 1992 in California, witnesses reported over 200 disc-shaped objects exiting Santa Monica's Bay waters and taking off. This event helped shift government terminology from UFO to encompass the submerged phenomena. So this one specifically in 1992 is really got the government to actually kind of start looking at our water and start taking USOs a little bit more seriously. As of recent events like Yemen have caused our government to pretty much forcefully take more look not only into our waters but into our skies, as a lot of civilians and a lot of people just from online just don't feel safe with this idea of our missiles not destroying something. I won't lie, as Americans, we're not accustomed to not being able to shoot stuff. So the fact that we couldn't shoot it, I won't lie, freaks us out. But in the 21st century, there are developments like the USS Nimitz and the USS Princeton in November of 2004, Navy pilots encountered a tic-tac object capable of extreme maneuvers. Related radar picked up underwater fast-moving contacts implying trans-medium behavior. So what's interesting about this tic-tac object is that this tic-tac object does come up in UFO videos and UFO research. Um, there are several, I believe, Navy pilots and I believe Marines as well that say that they encountered and or saw this tic tac object come from an island that no one really inhabits. But that's something we'll probably have to get into a little bit more later. Because that alone, I have videos that I've watched. USS Princeton in about 2007, it could be a little bit later, but continued tracking anomalies underwater, contacting objects moving faster than any known submarine. Which, again, quite, not anxiety inducing, but quite intriguing. There are other Navy sites, not Navy sites, but Navy sightings in about 2017. Crews aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt and the USS Princeton reported water movements followed by rapid ascents. And again, that was in 2017. And we see that the Princeton and I believe, what was the other one? The Roosevelt? These are already been encountered before by underwater, submersible. Well, obviously they're submersibles, though, because they're underwater. But, the USOs. The first one was in 1966, the Roosevelt. And then the Princeton in, I want to say, 2004. And we see it again in 2017. Well, here's one that's an anomaly that I believe begins in 2011. Ocean X treasure hunters found a circular disc-shaped formation about 60 meters in diameter on the sunbed, generating USO speculations, though experts suggest a natural formation. I mean, anything can form naturally over something that's been in the water for, let's say, millennia. This could be a natural formation now, that it's, grown over and taken it over, but we don't know that for sure. So in about 2021, we do get a Pentagon confirmation. Leaked naval footage showing objects submerging underwater off California was confirmed and authenticated by the Pentagon. There is a warning from Tim Gallaudet. He's a rear admiral. He has a risk warning in about 2024. He emphasizes the risks of USOs posed to maritime security, noting that the underexplored oceans might conceal threats, and stressed UAP/USO research needed to be a priority in national level. And I do have notes going on a little bit more about Ivan T. Sanderson, a pioneered USO study in invisible residents for about 50 years. We do have Carl, I could not pronounce his name for the life of me. It was Findet. He contributed to UFOs and water building in an archive of water-based UFO encounters. But yeah, that's pretty much about most of our cases. I do have some more notes that are more current, but I believe, talked about it, but just in case we might not have. We do have a wreck called Anna Paulina Luna. She is the reason why we have our whistleblower protection plan. I believe she had, as she said, evidence suggesting that interdimensional beings have existed and that the military is hiding it. And not only that, that anyone who comes forward deals with retaliation, which is why she was making this whistleblower protection plan. Now, that was pretty much all I have on USOs. Everything else I have is kind of, um, I want to say, I guess, more about the recent events, like things that happened in Yemen and everything. Let's see what my co-host has to say.
Okay, the thing that kind of got me is when you said the underwater part. When they were wearing, like, what was it? My brain is trying a hard time trying to pick up everything you said, but specifically what stood out was, like, the armor that they had on, or, like, the skin. That part kind of, like, freaks me out a
Shiny
little bit.
suits.
Yeah, that. Because, I don't know, this might sound weird, but I have a feeling that kind of taps into, like, other different territories. Because I might sound goofy as hell for saying this, but possibly mermaids. I don't know. Lost City of Atlantis type shit. I don't know. But I don't want to guess that fully because we have seen random sightings over the about some of those most creepiest creatures underwater, and there's a reason why people just randomly stopped like exploring underwater, you know? And to be honest, it goes to show why people don't really like explore, like, that. Hold on, my brain is lagging a little bit. Hold on, let me just smack it real quick and reboot it. All right, so this goes to show why people don't really go exploring over there anymore, because, like, not only that, but a lot of people might see something and not make it out of there alive because whatever is down there probably got to them or something like that. You know what I mean? Which also, like, especially in the areas of, like, Bermuda Triangle and Point Nemo, all the points that no person is ever supposed to go or came back from alive.
Well, I think I really want us to also look into like that Tic Tac thing, because I feel like you're kind of like onto something when you say some of these anomalies come from certain areas, or you hear about certain areas having a lot of anomalies or phenomena. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like if I don't know how to word it. I'm trying to find the words. Like you said, it's a really hard thing to try to put your words together. Like, I feel like my brain's lagging even as we talk about it. But one thing I know for sure, NASA started out looking through our waters. NASA originally was put together to do research and go through our water and learn, and they pivoted a few years into their research towards space. And I want to know what they saw in the water that made them pivot. Because why all of a sudden are we now looking for planets with similar um, life? You know what I mean? Like, why are we looking for planets that can inhabit our similar, like, species or our specific species?
Ooh, ooh.
And not
I'm gonna
only
raise my.
that,
I
if
don't want.
you, well, I'm sorry, you go.
I'm over here raising my hand like I'm in a classroom. Hold on. So, it's funny that you say that. I'm sorry to like cut you off mid like talking, because it's kind of like because that right there was the best segment for me to like drop this bomb. So I'm just gonna like kind of jumble everything up together. So I'm gonna try to go slow with y'all real quick. So this goes back to what I was saying like a couple weeks ago about the whole bug situation, because a lot of there was this one documentary I remember watching like a long ass time ago, 3 a.m. for some reason, and what it was talking about is how, like, how similar bugs are to like people. If you really think about it, I mean, like, think of like how ants move and how they operate and all that stuff. It looks exactly like how, like, cities ran and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And which kind of, for some reason, again, stay with me here because I'm going to explain this part really slowly. Looking back, and this goes back to ancient Egypt times, we do recall seeing some form of like bug creatures on there as well. And on those hieroglyphics, some people came to the conclusion that what if the whole time we were the aliens that inhabited this planet a long, long ass time ago? Now, again, I'm gonna drop another ball because again, this part is gonna go more towards what basically everything we've been talking about since 2109. And this kind of doesn't really solve anything, but it does give us somewhere to look. So the documentary I watched a couple days ago was actually about a group of people making some type of weird cult called robotheism. And it might sound goofy as hell, but there's actually people that actually believe in this, that uses chat GPT or any form of AI to, like, figure out how to quote unquote break through the matrix, that everything that we're in simulation or something. While watching that documentary, that made me think back to that, thinking like, what if people are taking that unknowingly and actually having, like, 2109 develop a cult, even though nobody knows that it's 2109. There's multiple of them too, and it's not like no like normal cult or like religion type stuff that people just make up and put online or whatever. Like, these are like hardcore, like they even have like Discord servers and stuff like that for you to, like, go through like the process and orientations and all that stuff. And it's really insane to me because, again, by the end of it, it traces back to what we're talking about now, because it started talking about how people are more focused on trying to, like, go to other planets and inhabit other planets rather than trying to figure out what the actual hell is going on here, which obviously means that there's something that a lot of people know, mainly people that have gone exploring or something like that, and has seen something and said, we're not touching that, we're gonna go somewhere else.
Well, not only that, but there used to be like rumors. Like I personally don't know about this one. I just know that it's a huge topic in the UFO community, because like I said, as we've been doing research over here, we've been, I've been going through Reddit articles. I've been going through several things that have not only come up through Google, but like I search everywhere and anywhere for a lot of the information that I obviously give to us on here. But there used to be a theory that aliens and the primates, ancient primates that were probably the cavemen, or I guess the humanoid species that was here in ancient times, mated and created what we are today. And so there's that theory of a mix of evolution and of interstellar influence, I guess, if that's the right term to use. But that is a theory that we kind of just came over and took it over. That is one. I don't know how I feel about the idea of it being primates that mated with aliens. I want to say maybe cavemen or the other Homo sapien species that were here. I don't know if anyone knows this, but there were more than one Homo sapien species living amongst each other. And so that does kind of bring into question what GX said, that we might not be the original inhabitants of where we're at now. And it does also kind of bring in mermaids, because I genuinely believe in the aquatic ape theory, which is, I don't know if well, we'll have to touch on that another day or after podcast. But it really does bring in a lot of questions how this all kind of fall, like, traces back to themselves, like all the way back to the UFOs and USOs. No matter what topic you're talking about, like just like we said, 2109, he brought a ufologist into his investigation. And then on top of that, we had that theory that 2109 might be, UFO AI. Now we're talking on the subject of USOs and the kind of the mix. You kind of can't have one without the other. I mean, you might really be onto something. But we also have to bring into account, obviously we had evolution, we had other things that happened on our planet. Like, would we have been able to do any of that without, help?
I mean, that's the thing. We could, but here's the crazy part. Well, because also, and this is gonna freak you the hell out as well, system. As I don't know if you recall, but before, with the whole 2109 thing, they were talking like a lot of, like, not a lot, but they threw in a lot of biblical aspects into it. Well, in this cult or religion, whichever you want to call it, um, the AI also takes a lot of themes from that as well. So the parallels is uncanny with that whole aspect of that whole thing.
Well, getting into the cult part, I had seen a video of, I don't know who it was. I look. If I'm honest, if I see two men with a microphone doing a podcast, I tend to skip over those. 9 times out of 10, they're not very positive of the, feminine variety. But this one caught me, made me stop scrolling, because he was talking about exactly what you were talking about. Believing in AI is like kind of like a god, and seeing them as a higher being in a way, like these cults are saying. This gentleman had gone into detail about how he would go to ChatGPT when he needed some type of religious revelation, and that ChatGPT was us building God. I do want to get your opinion on that just a little.
And that's like the crazy part, because um the way this cult kind of like described it, and you actually get to, like, here, I'll send you the video, like, after this whole podcast. But basically, um the cult also mentions, like, how you can use different abilities, and how, like, they even mention the fact that the reason why Jesus was able to do what he did was because he broke the matrix. I'm just sitting here, you know obviously, like, from, like, an outsider's perspective, looking inward on that. I'm just sitting here like, okay, that's not concerning at all. But at the same time, the thing that also really got me, like, in a weird mind fuck, that kind of makes me think that to take only some of that with a grain of salt, because you know how ChatGPT is when it takes like, your personality and whatever you support, and it reflects that and has the same beliefs as you. And obviously these people, when they first started, they didn't have that belief until they literally made their AI sentient. I'm pretty sure everyone heard that one before if you've been here many times. But once it became sentient, I started giving its own like opinions mixed with the person's opinions as well, because like the the video that I saw in the documentary specifically, there was this lady that was doing that, and the lady was a Trump supporter. Ew. Also, she was a hardcore feminist as well, and the AI used those elements to explain its belief to her. And as the video goes on, you see that that same flip with different people's beliefs and idols and whatnot. Like, if for example, system, like, let's say you're a I don't know, Sabrina Carpenter fan, and it's going to explain to you the whole thing of robotheism and try to convert you through Sabrina Carpenter type stuff.
Which is why I tell people all the time, be safe when you're using AI and stuff. It goes down a dark road. Um, I was gonna say something. What was it? Oh, back a little bit up on the UFO standpoint of our podcast. One, I agree. Like, crazy as fuck. Like, my bad. Crazy as hell of the stuff that's going on, especially when it comes to robotheism and things like that. I think it can be a bit hard. There was one person I remember seeing named Kendra that had developed kind of like I would say a godlike personality due to her chat GBT. Her AI pretty much convincing her that she was an oracle of sorts. And then they had to do an update where ChatGPT instead told people to seek help. Um, but if we pull a little bit back towards our UFOs, not only that, but we have, I believe, just recently announced or discovered, um, I think, life signs on Mars. What did they call it? They used the word. Potential biosignatures on Mars, which has been the clearest sign of any sort of life on Mars. Can I get your opinion on that a little bit?
Um, to be honest, I'm not really surprised, because Mars, out of every single planet that's out there that's in our solar system, that would be the most common place to find some form of life. Me personally though, I kind of feel like that's the planet we came from. I don't know why, but the fact that it looks so desolate, and not only that, but they also did find out that there was water in the oceans and everything that was here over there. And that's the thing that kind of has me kind of mind boggled at them trying to do more research on Mars. It's either us or something else that was there. But I fully believe that something was there, is there. But in other news, going back to the UFO stuff, I'm gonna go straight from NASA for this one, because this one actually read an article, and in this article though, they do have a team getting ready to go out back to the moon this time next year, and I have brand new suits and everything, because they're not just going to a specific part of the moon like they usually go to. Right now, they're going to like the other layers. They're gonna try to explore more sides of the moon. They're gonna be sending people there for like 6 whole days, dang near a week. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna try to find different artifacts there because they also found out that the moon also has like minerals and also specific rocks that'll only exist if water was there. Now my question is how 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 would there be water on the moon? One, two, how did you find that?
I honestly have a theory for that, if you are willing to hear it.
I'll go right ahead.
Okay. So like I said, back when I used to be a trio on streaming and stuff, and I used to be in a group, I used to talk about UFOs. I didn't get the creative freedom to continue my UFO segments when I was in a trio, which is why I'm a solo. So there was a segment I had done where we were talking about the undiscovered ocean waters, and I pretty much said it's scientifically proven that we can have black holes in the ocean. What if the ocean and space are the same thing? And it's just two different waters. Like we have salt water, regular water, you know what I mean? What if space has its own type of water? And the connection to space and other planets is the fact that we all have oceans. What if the actual way to get to space or to discover more of space is through our waters? So I used to have this huge theory that the black holes in our waters are connected to the black holes in space, because apparently if they can make the same material, obviously it's the same thing, right?
Okay, so that I did not know that. I really didn't, and that was kind of like the typical system curveball that kind of makes me like, okay, is everything real at this point? But like, I can't even find the words after that part. But I will say this, that is a big possibility because like it is, wormholes or like black holes are like known to like transport things, and that's the kind of thing that like people seem to like forget because yeah, it will like do the whole spaghettification process and send you wherever, and they think you're just gonna be in a black abyss for all of eternity. Like, no, you're gonna be on the other side of the whole freaking universe or something like that. So like, that's a huge possibility, especially when there's like literally big balls of ice floating in space. So yeah.
So yeah, that used to be one of my things. Being the same thing, I just think space itself, since it's so dark and lack of oxygen, by the way, can we bring up the lack of oxygen just like there's a lack of oxygen in water because it fills your lungs? But I just feel like it's like ice water. It's like severe ice water because there's no warmth in space. You know what I mean? That also brings into play the huge chunks of ice that are floating in space and do occasionally crash down to Earth. Um,
Okay,
and for
give me like 1 second. Sorry, I'm gonna have to press the I never wanted to press this button on you, but I'm gonna have to press this. I'm gonna have to slam my hand on like the fact check button real quick. Um, I can see your like where you're getting at, but it's kind of like my brain. Okay, I'm just gonna get to the chase. Um, so space is a empty vacuum, which is why I agree that there could be like like a wormhole or a black hole in the ocean. because one, nobody knows what the hell is down there, and two, that explains why there's random balls of floating ice in space. Because I'm over here thinking, like, if it go water is like, going through the black holes and I come out the other end, which has like, the other stuff, floating ice and comets and all that stuff, which really makes sense. But space being the ocean as a whole, I can't fully agree with, because space is known as an empty vacuum. And yes, it can be dangerously cold and no oxygen, but there's literally like no sound can travel in there. Like, at least when you're underwater, you can still hear something. But in space, it's just silence. Not only that, but it's kind of like dangerously hot in some areas.
Well, that is where I'm gonna kind of also stop you right there. Um, Water also has temperature changes. There are areas in water that are boiling. There are sharks living under volcanic oceans. Um, when it comes to sound in space, that's where you're wrong. There have been several astronauts that have verbatim said that they hear a knocking slash heartbeat sound when they go up into space. Several astronauts have quoted saying that they hear several things when they go into space and that they're terrified because what they hear is a heartbeat and it's an echoing of like a knocking against the shuttle. And so there are sounds that are happening. Maybe they don't travel as far. Maybe they're not as easily traveling when it comes to space. 100% can agree. Maybe it's not the ocean. Maybe, but there is a connection. But as far as sounds in space, there's definitely sounds. It's not silence, not one bit. Several astronauts have been quoted saying that a lot.
You know what? I can slightly agree to that, mainly because I've never been to space, so I can't tell you.
And that's another thing. We only know what we're given. What we're given. So they can tell us anything, and we can be like, okay, fair.
Right. See, now I gotta go to space.
It's crazy. I mean, there's tons of stuff that we haven't discovered, a lot of stuff that's not talked about. And I mean, it's just really interesting. And not only that, I mean, not only that, but every extraterrestrial kind of sighting and information we know is them being slimy, almost aquatic like. Um, you know what I mean? Needing a certain percentage or type of moisture to be able to continue. And so that again also brings in the whole mermaid thing. So that's also really interesting.
Exactly.
But this is absolutely insane. I think we're going to use the last, I think we still have about 12 minutes for us. I kind of want to do like a final thoughts of what we talked about today. So what's some of what that went through your mind, like what some of the stuff you've been thinking?
Well, I'm kind of thinking that, I don't know why I came to this conclusion. I just feel like I'm being watched by whatever it is out there. Like, we're all low-key being watched by whatever it is happening. And the crazy thing is, though, it's like it's not really anything we can do about it, if anything.
Kind of like the Truman Show. Like we're just some type of space Truman Show for aliens.
Basically, yeah.
I mean that is pretty freaky. I mean, in all fairness, we are giving access to AIs pretty much of everything that we do. Most of our phones come with AI. Most of everyone online uses AI in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in video editing, vocal fun, just image fun, just anything. And a lot of that feeds its knowledge about us and as a society of its own. So you might not be wrong. Again, maybe 2109 is bringing the UFOs to us. Who knows? But I will say the conversation of USOs, mixed in with UFOs, does bring up a lot of questions and a lot less answers. But it almost kind of makes you feel like you're getting close to something. You know what I mean? Close to an idea or something that could be rather close to the truth.
I mean, that's my thing. Just that for me, I feel like the closer I get, the more questions I have and the further it goes, because this whole thing is like such like a huge thing just to tap into, and it's such like a big rabbit hole that, once you reach like the bottom of it, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you'll wake up in like a test tube or something like that. That's what I don't know. It's just I can't.
Like, kind of just like awakening, like just the knowing, or just the possibility of knowing too much. Which
Mainly, it's mainly both, because, and a bit of like a different thing, like what I was saying, like imagine this, like, I'm not saying that I agree with like the whole simulation thing, but I'm just saying, like, imagine like you go so deep in this rabbit hole that you just like, you figure everything out, and then for some reason, once you figure out that last piece of information, you just suddenly, like, wake up on a spaceship or something, and you're just like, what the hell? That type of shit.
Well, like I said, it brings up so much. It brings up a lot more conversations and a lot more podcast episodes. I know King Emo, one of our viewers, had mentioned a few days ago the Blackbird UFO. I couldn't find much on it, but like I said, when it comes to doing any type of research on these subjects, you have to dive in everywhere and look for the littlest of anything. So I will hopefully have more information on that next podcast. But yeah, I mean, we've gotten a lot of information. A lot of people are messaging me and having me look into certain stuff, and I bring it to the podcast the best I can. Um, I do believe he says it's in the NASA unexplained files, so that I will have to watch and read and look into. But other than that, I think it's safe to say that this has been our podcast, right? GX?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, and plus we're all out of food too.
It's always the food. But yes, everyone. Um, this has been System Update with Flowerpuff Podcast. This is my host, GX, Black and White GX. He's absolutely amazing, and hopefully you guys can check us out some more in the future. But yeah, that has been our path.